Horizon TV, kurunzi ya taifa.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. It is the 13th of October, 4 minutes past 8 a.m. My name is Nadia Osman and my sign language interpreter is Mr. Abdullah. And I know this past week we've been watching the news, we've had our eyes glued to the screen, as well as refreshing and finding out information on the ongoing conflict in the Gaza area. And I know that we have a lot of questions, and today joining me in studio is none other than the Ambassador of the State of Palestine to Kenya, His Excellency Hazem Shabat, who will be able to answer our questions and also educate us more on the Palestinian cause, as well as the Israeli and Palestinian conflict that has been happening over the years. Good morning. Assalamu alaikum. How are you this fine morning?
I'm well, thank you.
And I know that we were having a discussion earlier, and it's what we've been seeing on the news from Saturday has been very sad. And we've been seeing that the Palestinians in Gaza have been bombarded from, I think, over the weekend, and it's still happening. And for anyone who's been following up what's been going on in the Gaza Strip, there are a lot of questions that people are asking. You know, the people who've already taken sides on who I'm going to support, who I'm not going to support. But at the end of the day, it's always important to educate ourselves on matters before, you know, coming into conclusions. And I know that this, as I've mentioned earlier, is something that has been going on over the years. And I know, Mr. Ambassador, you're better to educate us on the Israeli and Palestinian conflict and what's been happening in the area from probably the past.
Well, thank you very much for having here today. And in a nutshell, basically, we have to understand the Palestinian conflict and any development that we have witnessed through the past days. From the lens that this is a 1 century old conflict, when colonial powers interfered in the composition of our societies by solving their continental problems at the expense of other nations, and Palestine was not the exception in this regard, in which Britain had promised leaders of the Zionist movement in Europe to excuse me, to create a homeland for Jews around the world in Palestine. So basically, this huge influx of refugees at the expense of our people, their land and their livelihoods, has created a very disturbed reality in Palestine, despite the fact that throughout history, Palestinians, Muslims, Christians, and Jews have lived in harmony, and there was no cross-religious tensions at all. Everybody was being identified within the same culture, the same identity, and the faith is left between the person and God. So, but when this intervention happened and this interference happened, it had created the feeling of that the lands are being robbed, that their future is being robbed, and a creation of a state that has been artificially made by immigrants from outside the region. This is when we started as Palestinians recognizing the amount of dark future that we are being exposed to, and we started being very vocal and resisted this reality since the 20s, the 30s, throughout the 40s. But apparently the plan was very solidly adopted in the Western world and in the leading countries in the world at that time, in the 40s, after the Second World War. And the decision was taken that, no, we need to solidify the Jewish presence in Israel in a form of a state. So you had acceptance of the State of Israel as a member of the United Nations on principles of observing international law, allowing the refugees that have been expelled as a result of the war to return to their properties and homes, and to respect the borders that has been assigned to it by the international community. Israel did not respect that. It continued its military operation and exceeded its designated territory time after time until in 1967, when Israel dominated the entire geography that we know as Palestine, or defined in legal documents as Palestine, and during the British Mandate was Palestine, even including biblical references refer to Palestine. So with that happening, the world took a decision. Not the Palestinians, the international community, the Security Council, and the leading powers took a decision that Israel will not be recognized beyond the 1967 borders. Israel has no right to exist beyond the 1967 borders. And that means East Jerusalem, the entire West Bank, speaking about cities like Ramallah, Nablus, Jericho, Hebron, Tulkarem, Jenin, and all their surrounding, of course, villages and communities, and the Gaza Strip as part of that territory that are not part of Israel. And since 1967, Israel has existed and controlled and dominated these areas, including its population, as an occupation. This is not the Palestinian definition. This is the definition of international law and all the subsequent UN Security Council resolution. This is on paper the position of the EU and its member states. This is the position of the US. This is the position of China, Russia, and all other powers around the world, in all continents of the world. Nobody is recognizing Israel beyond the 1967 borders.
When we talk about, as you've mentioned, the extension of borders by the Israeli government and the ongoing conflicts that have been in the area, how has it impacted the lives of the Palestinians?
It devastated the lives of the Palestinians and derailed our normal path to development, to progressing, living under occupation since 1967. Dominated in every aspect of our life. If we go or we do not go to school, if we make it to work or not, we do not make it to work, who gets to a hospital and who doesn't, what material is allowed for us to consume and at what price. Everything of this aspect of our life is dominated by the Israeli occupation. And time after time after time, the international community, through its relevant organizations, Human Rights Council, UN Security Council, General Assembly, all of these bodies have been very vocal and have issued sufficient statements and resolutions that clearly describe Israel's actions as violations to international law and actions that are making the lives of Palestinian people extremely intolerable in violation to international humanitarian law.
When you were talking earlier, you mentioned something to do with religion, and my question for you is, for those who are basing this conflict based off religion, and to understand Palestine, and is this really a religious conflict?
Extremely not, definitely not. This has never been a religious conflict from its inception until today. This is not about the faith factor of the conflict. This is about international law, this is about foreign occupation, and is not any different from any type of colonialism that has taken place or foreign occupation that has taken or is taking place or will take place in the future in any geography in this world. It's about people who have a right, according to the United Nations Charter and relevant United Nations Security Council resolutions. We have the right to self-determination and independence and to live, and the right to live in peace and security and good neighborly relations with all our surrounding countries, including Israel. But the key point here is that in the absence of occupation, not while we are being occupied.
Yes, thank you so much for pointing that out. My next question for you is probably, In the region, there have been different times where mediation and talks and agreements between the Israeli government and the Palestinian government. In the recent, just to shed light on what's been going on in Gaza, does that affect probably the Israeli government and the Palestinian coming together to probably form a coalition or talks regarding peace?
No, what has happened is a result to the failure of the other channels and mechanisms. In 1993, we have entered what is known as the Oslo Agreement, in which we and the Israelis, the PLO as a representative of the Palestinian people, and Israel signed the famous Oslo Agreements, in which the Palestinians put in black and white that they recognize Israel's right to live in peace and security within, of course, the defined and internationally recognized borders, and that we also renounce violence, and we would work within a time frame of 5 years to disengage from this occupation and achieve self-determination. The 5 years have passed, which means basically that Israel's only task, which was to stop its occupation and roll out of the occupied territory back into its internationally recognized borders, never took place. The only task that Israel had, or commitment that was under that agreement, that they are within the 5 years are supposed to be withdrawing their occupation mechanisms, the army, back into the Israeli recognized cities and leave us as Palestinians to start living and exercising our freedom and self-determination and independence. This did not take place during the 5 years, and we have been dragged into 30 years of a peace process that is not only has failed to yield any better results for the Palestinians or end the conflict, but on the contrary, on daily basis, the situation on the ground is getting worse, and this occupation is becoming more entrenched in dominating our lives. Since 2014, the Israeli governments have refused to sit and to resume the peace talks at the aim of ending the conflict and how we can de-escalate situations and get back the peace process on its track, despite all international interventions, all international calls. There have been multiple efforts from different US administrations and EU and some of its member states, the Arab League, different also calls from influential countries like Russia and China. All these actors have failed to convince Israel to sit on the table and to continue on the peace of a negotiated peace agreement that ends the conflict and the occupation.
And Mr. Ambassador, when we're looking at obviously not sitting down to probably find better solutions to end the conflict, whatever happened over the weekend, would you say is drawn back to what's been going on for the past? It's not something that just came out of the blues. It's something that there's something that has definitely led to what happened on Saturday.
Of course, we have been warning the Palestinian leadership, the Palestinian government, through every venue, every channel, every platform, through every phone call, every meeting that we had with our interlocutors over the past 3 years. From the platform of the General Assembly itself, in our President's statements, we have warned the international community. The situation is not tolerable anymore, and there is an explosive reaction coming. Our people cannot take this injustice anymore. Our people cannot be burying their children on weekly basis all around Palestine, in every city in Palestine. Our people cannot continue to be humiliated on army checkpoints on daily basis, in the morning and in the evening. Our people cannot be dominated how to run their economy, or being deprived of their tax revenues, or being dominated in how we spend our tax money on what services. This is the life that the Palestinians are facing on daily basis. Now, What has happened is a direct result to Israel's arrogance and pressuring the Palestinian people to a point that we have seen this tragic events that had took place since Saturday. The occupation is to blame. Had the occupation ended in the time frames that it should have, and the Palestinian people have been very patient for over 30 years exactly, we have been working to achieve that. Nothing is taking place. We're not moving forward. The fact that a group, a person, an entity decides to take action, it has done so because of the vacuum that we have created for any actions to take place. While we had a specific path that should have ended in time frames, and we extended it, and we kept working very closely with all our international partners and Israeli governments to move forward, but it's not happening, and people could not tolerate it anymore. And this, what happened, this tragic images and incidents and news that we are hearing is a direct result, and Israel should be held responsible for creating that reality.
And Mr. Ambassador, let's talk a little bit about the misinformation that's been spread over various TV stations and probably the media and the online platforms. And one of them is labeling Hamas as a terrorist organization, and probably the misinformation that's been passed and the biasness of probably the international community. What do you have to say about this, basically?
This is one of the worst enemies that we have faced as Palestinians. The misinformation and what we call I lost the word, forgive me, but I mean manipulation of the facts in a manner that serves the occupier. Which is part of the international impunity that Israel has existed. I'm not here to speak on behalf of Hamas. I'm here speaking on behalf of the Palestinian people and their legitimate government and leadership. But what I want people to consider, that this conflict has not started last Saturday. This conflict has been going on, at least in its final legal framework, since 56 years. The Palestinians have been patient and under the woes of occupation for 56 years. Whatever has taken place on Saturday, as tragic as it may be, but this does not come from thin air. This has been developing and brewing and created and encouraged and fed. Radicalism has been fed within our societies by the illegal actions of the Israeli occupation. And this is not the Palestinian opinion, by the way. These are the United Nations agencies' reports. This is all respectable media around the world. This is their analysis. This is even the European Union's representatives in Palestine analysis and conclusions that the lives of Palestinians, I think it was last May or last March or something like this, the Palestinian representatives of all the countries of UK, of Norway, and many others. I don't want to keep listing so I don't miss anybody, but the representatives of the European countries in Palestine have reported that Israel is making the lives of the Palestinians in the West Bank, let alone the Gaza Strip, intolerable. So what exactly did we expect to happen?
Very true. And just as you've mentioned, making their lives intolerable, we've seen over the past few days some very wild comments from various Israeli leadership, people in Israeli leadership positions. And one of them is, I'd quote, one of the Israeli leaders was asked about the Palestinian lives, and he in turn answered, "Are you seriously asking me about Palestinian lives?" And in a situation where this would probably cause outcry, it seems that everyone is very silent on such comments.
If you are speaking about President Ben Gvir, the Minister for Internal Security, the person who is responsible for governing the occupied territories and the security in the occupied territories, yes, he has mentioned that my commuting with my family back and forth is more important than Palestinian lives. So basically, and that their lives to enjoy peace and security is more important than the Palestinians' ability to move freely within their societies and their communities and their cities and villages. This is the mentality, and this has been recorded, and this has been also condemned by the US administration, by many of the European countries, by the United Nations. So these violations were taking place on air, and it's not a surprise to anybody that this is the new government's way of thinking, that they're thinking of the Palestinians as subhumans with less entitlement of rights. And I don't think that there is anybody in the world that can tolerate this. Human Rights Watch and Amnesty International, both not Palestinian, not Arab, and very renowned international organizations that shape the international benchmark on issues of human rights around the world. Both came to the same conclusion in 2002, that Israel's action in the occupied Palestinian territory is apartheid. This is not a surprise. And this is not, an analysis. This is based on the facts on the ground. They have come to that conclusion. So if I'm having an occupation that has exceeded its time limit, that continues to entrench, continues to abuse, continues to suppress and oppress and kill and demolish and confiscate, and it's dubbed by everybody responsible that and specialized in the area of human rights, that it has become an apartheid state. What else were we expecting?
That's true. Mr. Ambassador, just a quick question. We've seen that the President of Kenya has voiced his support for Israel, and we've seen various bodies and probably organizations who have supported Israel in this conflict. And we've seen the African Union has also released a statement that is completely different from what our President said. What's your opinion on this?
Again, on the statement that has been given by His Excellency, the President of the Republic of Kenya, again, I do not only read the first part of that statement.
Yes.
The statement was a long statement, and it included many points, important points, that we have read very well, and we understood from it that Kenya is a responsible also country that knows exactly what are its obligations under international law and international humanitarian law, that it also recognizes that the problem did not start on Saturday, that without solving this conflict in the peaceful means, which is our position and definitely what we have been calling for and working for very hardly over many decades, things will not get any better. Anything else on that position, I think it would be better to be addressed to the Kenyan government to explain. But from what we see, that there are points in that statement in which Kenya has clearly signaled that it is aware of its international legal obligations as a responsible state, which we have seen over many decades Kenya exercising that responsibility and solidarity and awareness of the complications of this conflict and where the law stands on that. So I wouldn't put a lot of emphasis for me to analyze His Excellency the President's statement. I think it would be best if the Kenyan government would clarify that.
Very, very true. And Mr. Ambassador, I want you to paint a picture for us, the humanitarian crisis in the Gaza area right now, bearing in mind that there are children who live there, and we've seen that the Israeli government has completely blocked off food, water, electricity, fuel. Just paint a picture for us on the humanitarian crisis ongoing.
think of the worst, it's even worse. Things are developing in a very saddening, at a very saddening pace. There is no safe areas in the Gaza Strip as we are speaking now. I just stepped into your studios when extensive bombardment of Gaza was taking place in the early hours of the morning, and bodies were being retrieved from the collapsing buildings. We have to understand that the Gaza Strip is one of, if not the most populated area in the world. Bombardment is indiscriminate. We have almost now, we're approaching 1,600 deaths in Palestine. All reports are indicating that at least 50% of them are women and children. The Israeli army in the very early hours of the morning has informed that it's asking the residents of northern Gaza Strip, which are estimated at 1.1 million people, to move into the southern Gaza Strip in 24 hours.
Is that possible?
I am not the one who gave the order to qualify that question or to respond to that question, but immediately the United Nations has been responded very quickly that this is not legal under international law. This is displacement of populations. Yes. With regard to the issues of sieging Gaza at another level, because Gaza, for anybody who doesn't know, has already been under Israel's military siege for 17 years, continuously. So basically, the conditions there are already, very severe and dire, and therefore, this adds another layer of complication to the lives of the people and targets the people life in a manner that is prohibited by international law. Unfortunately, and this is, I will just give this as an example. This is prohibited under international law, and we heard the Secretary General of the United Nations say very clearly, this is prohibited under international law. Did Israel comply? No. Did any of the key players force Israel to comply? None of them did. So basically, a catastrophe is going to happen, and then we will be questioning ourselves many weeks, many months, many years later, why is what we are seeing at that day has happened. Because violence triggers violence, injustice triggers injustice,
Yes.
and this is what we have been subjected to for too long. Every human life is valuable.
It is true.
But what Israel is doing, it's feeding this conflict for enough hatred for many, many generations to come. And Israel is not a group, it's not a militia, it's not a gang, it's a state that is obliged to act and conduct itself within the confinements of international law. There are laws that govern armies how to conduct combat. Any deviation from these criteria translates immediately into being dubbed and labeled as war crimes, and are, the perpetrator is accountable under international law to the ICC and other bodies on this regard.
Yes, that's very, very well put, Mr. Ambassador. And just to give your own opinion, are there specific actions or policies that could help ease the situation for the Palestinian people?
At this stage, to stop this madness, stop this bombardment, and spare no more lives needs to be shed in this conflict. This is where all the efforts should be directed to end this escalation immediately.
Yes.
and achieve an immediate ceasefire, everything else can be dealt with more rationality. We have enough international partners and key players in the region that can steer this ship into a much safer reality for everybody involved in the conflict. But if we give Israel a free hand to commit these atrocities, as we have seen in the past 6 days, I don't think that there will be anything left to discuss in the Gaza Strip, and we will have mass expulsions, war crimes being committed, and a death toll that will mark a shameful day in humanity and will haunt us for many years to come.
And that brings me to my next question, the role of the international community. What role do you believe they have to play in ensuring this?
The role is very well defined and clear. Any country that does not adhere to international law and Security Council resolutions, every country in the world has an obligation to do all that it is in its power to oblige that state to commit to international law and to commit and adhere to international humanitarian law and UN Security Council resolutions. And this is the essence of the problem, that since 1967, and of course definitely before, but I will put 1967 as a benchmark, Israel has been given full impunity with regard to its legal obligations under international law. Full impunity. Israel has not fulfilled any of its commitments under any UN Security Council resolution since it was established. Not one. And I challenge anybody who can bring me, pick and choose any resolution that has been issued, not only from the UN Security Council, even from the General Assembly, and put it on the table and say Israel has fulfilled this one. Israel is the only country until today, as we are speaking today, that does not have defined borders. Yes. How can the international community accept a country to exist without recognized borders? If you bring an Israeli ambassador and tell him, can you please draw me the map of Israel, he will not do that, because there is no map of Israel. Until this very day, there is no map for Israel recognized by the Israeli government, the Israeli parliament, the Israeli politicians and political parties. So why is this, fluid existence of Israel above international law, above all the criteria that governs the existence of nations? Why is that? This is a recipe for catastrophe. If it was not Saturday, it would have been in a year, in 6 months, in 10 years, whatever. It was not a matter of how or whatever, it was a matter of when. And we have warned against this repeatedly, even in the Republic of Kenya. I have been in full consultations with our counterparts in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and we have been telling them and exposing the actions of the Israeli government and the violations they are committing repeatedly. I've been here for 5 years. Through these 5 years, I know how many times I've been to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and I have shared with them the information, and they are fully aware of the situation. And Kenya, like many other countries, should have recognized that this reality is not sustainable. It will blow up in everybody's face at one time or the other.
Very, very true. Just because I'm being reminded because of time, are there any specific messages or appeals that, as a Palestinian, you'd like to convey to the global community and Kenyans at large?
To the Kenyans, I would really advise that you have to be very well educated and to follow very closely, and to weigh every piece of information. Don't be dragged into the misinformation in this side or the other side or anything like this. Everything, think very rationally about everything. Don't only think with your heart, think with your mind. Kenya and Palestine have shared a lot of common history, and just remember that Palestine is not an exception and the Palestinians are not an exception, and we're not subhumans. We have the same rights, just like Kenyans, to live in peace and prosperity and independence and to prosper like all other nations.
Very, very well put. Thank you so much, Mr. Ambassador, for joining me today. You've educated whoever's listening to this and also, conveyed a message of peace. And thank you so much. I think no one would have said it better than you.
Thank you very much.
And that brings us to the end of our first part of the show. But we're coming back with the weekly news recap, so do not go anywhere.
Horizon TV, the beacon for the nation. Pearls of Wisdom.
Abu Sa'id al-Khudri, may Allah be pleased with him, narrated that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, O Allah, I take refuge in you from anxiety and sorrow, weakness and laziness, miserliness and cowardice, the burden of debts, and from being overpowered by men.
Verse of the day.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. والذين إذا أنفقوا لم يسرفوا ولم يقتروا وكان بين ذلك قواما. والذين لا يدعون مع الله إلها آخر ولا يقتلون النفس التي حرم الله إلا بالحق ولا يزنون ومن يفعل ذلك يلقى أثاما.
On the next episode,
nikaanza kuwa curious about Islam. I remember siku moja rafiki yangu anaitwa Eunice akaniambia, tell me the name of your God. So nikasurura Jehova hizo majina and tell him, show me the verse yenye inaonyesha kwamba hii dini yenu ya Ukristo ni dini ya haki mbele ya Mwenyezi Mungu. Singetoa kwa sababu obvious tulikuwa pale tunasomewa, hatukuwa tunasoma. Kwa hivyo ule jamaa alikuwa ananisomea ile aya katika Quran 3:19 Suratul Al-Imran, ile inna dina indallahi al-Islam.
Horizon TV, kurunzi ya taifa.
Thank you so much for staying with us here on Horizon TV. I hope you're following up on the first part of the show where we had a very educative conversation, and we're back with actually the weekly news recap. First, let's give you the headlines.
This is something that is so disgusting.
In Kenya, it is illegal. Full stop.
LGBTQ ruling. Religious leaders hold protests demanding resignation of 3 Supreme Court judges of the LGBTQ ruling. Hamas-Israel conflict. United Nations condemns Israel airstrikes as Gaza's health ministry confirms over 1,000 Palestinians dead in Israeli attacks. Tackling food insecurity. The Kenya Marine and Fisheries Institute working on a saline water purification technology in ASIL areas to enable farmers venture in agriculture.
Now, hundreds of Muslims and Christians took to the streets on Friday to protest the Supreme Court's ruling allowing the LGBTQ community rights of association. The protests in Nairobi saw protesters demanding for the resignation of 3 Supreme Court judges. The Supreme Court last month reaffirmed an earlier ruling that the non-governmental organization board in Kenya had discriminated against LGBTQ+ people when it refused to register the association. A ruling that saw Justices Mohammed Ibrahim and William Oko oppose on the grounds that Kenya's law outlaws same-sex relationships.
These were the scenes last Friday as hundreds of Muslims held a peaceful walk against LGBTQ community.
Basically come here together as Al-Huda girls to come and join ourselves with the Muslim religion to fight against LGBTQ, because actually this is something that is so disgusting, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created us as women, and he also created men for his own purpose, and he knew the reason why he created both of us. So there's no way we can come up with a culture that we're supposed just to marry against ourselves, women against women and men against women. So actually we're supposed to come, all of us as Kenyans, all of us as Muslims, and fight against LGBTQ.
The rally followed a Supreme Court ruling last month allowing the LGBTQ community to register as a non-governmental organization, going against Kenya's culture and religious traditions that consider homosexuality as evil, unnatural and ungodly.
Mwilu Smoking Wanjala na Njoki Ndungu walitoa kwamba uwezekano ama wakasema mashoga wanaweza wakafanya kuform kama vyama vya kuwatetea, na hii ni jambo ambalo kwenye constitution yetu imekatazwa kabisa. Na kando na constitution, sisi kama Waislamu, Allah amekataza mambo kama haya, na juu yake hata dini zote zimekataza, hata utamaduni wa Kiafrika umekataza. Bunge hatutaki nini Kenya? Maseneta hatutaki nini Kenya? Mawaziri hatutaki nini Kenya? Wazazi hatutaki nini Kenya? Walimu hatutaki nini Kenya? Wafanyakazi hatutaki nini Kenya? Wakristo hatutaki nini Kenya? Waislamu hatutaki nini Kenya?
According to the 2010 Constitution of Kenya, homosexuality relationships are illegal and the only permitted relationships are between a male and a female.
During the formulation of the 2010 Constitution, a vast majority of Kenyans made it clear that homosexuality relationship will remain illegal.
The leaders, led by Nyali constituency member of parliament Mohammed Ali, said Kenya is a religious country that cannot accept such a ruling that will destroy the community, and urged the 3 judges led by Deputy Chief Justice Philomena Mwilu, Justice Njoki Ndung'u, and Justice Smokin Wanjala to resign with immediate effect.
The decision of the judges was a clear contempt of the Constitution, violated the country's cultural and religious traditions, and betrayed the will of Kenyans. The only honorable thing the people of Kenya want from the dishonorable judges is to gracefully relinquish their positions and resign. Philomena Mwilu must go. Njoki Ndung'u must go. Smokin Wanjala must go. Failure to resign in the exercise of the power of the people of Kenya as espoused under the Constitution of Kenya, we will embark on a process for the removal from office.
The religious groups have called on President William Ruto to come out strongly against LGBTQ and ensure the nation that his government will stand to protect at all costs the religious, cultural and traditional values held by Kenyans.
In Kenya, it is illegal, full stop. In Kenya, we believe in Quran, we believe in the Bible. It is not allowed in Kenya. It's as simple as that.
Si masala ya Waislamu haya, ni masala ya jamii nzima, ni masala ya nchi mzima. Kila mwenye akili yake akaona upumbavu kama ufai kwenye jamii basi ajitokeze. Na si kujitokeza leo peke yake. Hii ni masala inafaa iendelee kila siku katika mashule, katika makazi, mambo haya yakemewe kabisa.
During the Kenyans' walk against LGBTQ, parents warned the Education Ministry of trying to use the backdoor plans and introduce the sexual health, reproductive rights and the comprehensive sex education initiatives to gradually legalize LGBTQ activities in the country.
Children are being taught vulgar information. They are being shown pictures of naked men and naked women. They are being told that at age 5 they should explore with masturbation. They are being taught that at age 9 they should explore having same-sex experiences. They are being taught that at age 15 they should consider if they are not uncomfortable with their body, they can change through transgenderism. And we are saying, CS of Education, we need you to give us an answer. What is this comprehensive health education about? What is the content of the CHE that you have decided will be compulsory?
Salma Salim, The Muslim Insights.
Thank you, Salma, for that report. Now on the same, after Pope Francis said on Sunday that the Catholic Church is open to everyone, including the gay community, and that it has a duty to accompany them on a personal path of spirituality, but within the framework of its rules. Muslim leaders from the North Rift region, led by Sheikh Abu Bakr Binni, the chair of the Council of Imams and Preachers of Kenya, Uasin Gishu County, have condemned the words by the Pope, saying it goes against all religious teachings. Pope Francis suggested it may be possible to bless the same-sex unions in a newly public response to cardinals who questioned the Pope's affirmation of the LGBTQ community in the Catholic Church.
Hatukulitarajia kiongozi kama huyu kutoa msimamo na kwenda kinyume ya Biblia na Qurani, kusema ya kwa kuwa LGBTQ wasibaguliwe, na hakuna mtu anawabagua. Lakini tunavyosema vitendo hizi zilikatazwa katika Qurani na Biblia, Sodomu na Gomora, na katika Qurani kaumu Lutu. Leo tulinyamazie swala hili lizungumzwe duniani kama ni halali watu kufanya jambo kama hili. Hili ni jambo ambalo kwamba limetuhuzunisha sana, na wito wetu tumeutoa kwa maaskofu wetu wa Kiafrika, watoe msimamo wao, wajitokeze, waongee. Ni ukweli hili ama si ukweli? Ni sawa si sawa? Wamkosowe katika haki, usiogope mtu. Fuata maandishi. Maandishi ndio muhimu kuliko mtu yoyote duniani. Kuheshimu Mungu ndio lo muhimu. Tunangojea kauli ya maaskofu wetu wa Afrika mzima na wetu wa Kenya walizungumzia swala hili. Isiwe serikali ikiteleza kidogo wanaita media wanamkosoa rais. Kwa nini wasiwe na wako tayari kumkosoa kiongozi wao mkubwa ambaye ni pop? Kwa hivyo hili ndio msimamo wetu, na baadhi ya mashirika, nataka hii tuiweke wazi, ya Kiislamu, mashirika, si mashehe, si maimamu. Maimamu wa msikitini wote wamefanya maandamano Kenya mzima, dunia mzima, lakini kuna mashirika ambayo ni NGO ambayo huwa zinawakilisha Waislamu kwa mambo fulani katika serikali, pia wajitokeze waeleze msimamo wao katika suala hili la LGBTQ.
Thank you for that. Now, according to the United Nations Office for Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs, over 260,000 people have been forced to flee their homes in the Gaza Strip as heavy Israeli bombardments from the air, land and sea continue to hit the Palestinian territory. The fighting has left thousands dead on both sides, with over 260,000 people in Gaza believed to have fled their homes. Among the displaced, nearly 175,000 people sought shelter in 88 schools run by the UN agency supporting Palestinian refugees. Now, according to the Palestinian Health Ministry in Gaza, the death toll in Gaza from Israeli attacks has risen to 1,200 injuries to top over 5,000. It said that around 3,000 people have been displaced due to previous escalations prior to Saturday. The bombs have destroyed more than 1,000 housing units, and over 500 have been so severely damaged that they are uninhabitable. Fears are mounting that the number of displaced Palestinians in Gaza will increase amid continuing Israeli attacks. Very, very sad news indeed. Now, moving on, in a harmonious collaboration, a Muslim community-based organization, Jamia Mosque Nairobi and Absa Bank Kenya joined hands this Saturday for a compassionate cause together. They hosted a pad drive and Linda Mama awareness campaign featuring expert talks on crucial women's health topics, menstrual care, maternal health and infant well-being. The event's impact was tangible as women received not only valuable insights from various doctors, but also sustainable support in the form of reusable sanitary pads.
This event is aimed at 200 Muslim women who are between ages of 18 and 45, so reproductive age for women. We are also providing them with reusable sanitary pads to prevent women from going without sanitary pads, seeing as menstruation is a monthly thing. We are also talking about early newborn health and childhood health, seeing as these women are the ones who are at home with the kids for the first few years of their life before they go to school. So importance of childhood health and maternal health is issues affecting women. We lose so many moms during pregnancy, and our main aim here, inshallah, is to educate women with danger signs and things to look out for during pregnancy and during the newborn stage of their babies' lives.
Linda Mama, sisi kama community health workers on the ground, tumeona imekuwa na athari kubwa sana kwa kina mama, na kila siku muo nasema kuna reluctance kidogo kupande ya wamama wa Kiislamu kuwa part of this Linda Mama, na Linda Mama si peke yake bali kukuwa part of the community health awareness. Utaona wamama wetu kwa sababu ya culture na kwa sababu ya illiteracy tunaona wanazembea nyuma, ili hali wengine wanapata kubenefit kwa program kama hizi.
So importance of having such events is to empower women with knowledge regarding issues affecting them both in their general health and their reproductive health, and issues affecting their children at home, seeing as some of them don't even have capacities to actually go to hospitals. We are also advocating for things like NHIF and Linda Mama registration. Linda Mama itself is an initiative under the NHIF program that allows women to access free maternal health and newborn health in public hospitals and some private hospitals, inshallah.
Tunashukuru sana kwa sababu ni wengi walikuwa wanatumia viraka, wanatumia vitu ambazo hazifai. Wengine unapata watoto wetu wasichana wanaenda hedhi yao kwa nguo, lakini kwa leo wallahi tumenufaika. Tunashukuru Allah na wadhamini wote. Siku nyingine tunawakaribisha huku, wakija watulete tena ili tuweze kunafuaisha wote ambao hawana.
Thank you for that. Now, the Kenya Marine and Fisheries Institute is piloting a saline water purification technology that could revolutionize agriculture in arid and semi-arid areas of Kenya. The technology also aims at producing lithium, a natural element used in the manufacture of lithium metal and lithium-ion batteries, heat-resistant glass and ceramics, and lithium grease lubricants, among others. Now, known as the seawater greenhouse technology and lithium mining from Saltworks project, the technology is being piloted at Kanzuni area of Magarini sub-county, Kilifi County, and is one of 2 such projects in Africa, the other one being piloted in Somalia. Dr. Joseph Nyigi Kamau, a research scientist at KMFRI, says that the technology is feasible in areas that have huge amounts of saline water, strong winds and high temperatures such as Turkana County and Damba in Kilifi County.
Hapa tuko kunaitwa Kazuoni, na Kazuoni tulipachagua maana ni mahali ambapo ni semi-arid. Jua ni kali na pia kuna upepo. Katika huu mradi ambao tunauita kwa Kiingereza unaitwa seawater greenhouse, ni unahusu kuweza kuyasafisha yale maji ambao ni ya chumvi, kuyafanya baridi, na wakati yamefanyika baridi yanaweza kutumika kwa ajili ya ukulima ya horticulture. Sasa hapo ndipo ambapo tunahusisha huu mradi, na pia tunahusisha pamoja na wenyeji ili ya kwamba wakaweza kuchukua huu mradi kwa ajili ya madhumuni ya kuboresha maisha yao. Sasa huu mradi unatumia mbinu rahisi sana ambao inahusisha jua na upepo mkali. Sasa yale maji ambao ni ya chumvi tunayaleta, alafu tunayapampu kwa kutumia sola. Yanapitia sehemu ambao ni imeundwa na maboksi fulani. Sasa yale maji yakinyunyiziwa kwenye yale maboksi yanaloa maji ya chumvi.
Thank you for that. Now, Dawah Center, a non-profit Muslim organization with the aim of accurately conveying the Islamic message to each and every person in Kenya, organized a street dawah in Nairobi on Saturday to propagate the message of Islam. The organization uses different channels to spread the message of Islam, including door-to-door, street dawah, and institutions like mosques, schools, and hospitals.
The objective of Dawah Center is to spread, promote, preach and propagate Islam.
Our main aim is to spread the message of Islam to each and every Kenyan. Our main method is to give out pamphlets. This is a sample of the pamphlets with a topic on Jesus. We tell people who is Jesus and what do Muslims believe about Jesus. We also talk about Islam and why does anyone need to maybe be a Muslim. What are some of the things, or what is the purpose, why God has created each and every human being. These are some of the topics that are written on these pamphlets.
Abdulatif Abdurrahman, the Dawah Center coordinator, said, Dawah Center is committed to conveying the message of Islam to non-Muslims, forging connections with those who might not have had the chance to learn about the religion.
As we do this da'wah work, we have come to realize that many people don't know about Islam. Many people believe things that are not related to Islam. Many people do not know what Islam is. And this is a responsibility of each and every Muslim to be able to tell people about Islam.
Kuna mambo kadhaa ambayo ni muhimu. Jambo la kwanza, watu wajue maana Uislamu ni nini. Wajue Uislamu ni nini na ni dini inalingania namna gani, dini ambayo inatupelekea kumjua Mwenyezi Mungu Subhanahu wa Ta'ala na kumwabudu, ya kwanza. Ya pili, kuondosha zile fahamu mbaya kuhusu Uislamu. Kwa sababu kuna watu wanafahamu akisikia Uislamu anajua labda ni dini ya wauaji au dini ya Waarabu peke yake au dini inamgandamiza sijui mwanamke au nani.
Street Dawa is one of the initiatives aimed at reaching out to non-Muslims all over the country.
We have reached the areas of Kawangware, we have reached Kayole, Nairobi West, South C, South B. We have also reached Korogocho and many different areas around Nairobi. We have also gone as far as Mombasa. We have gone to also Bungoma. We have gone to Kiambu County and different kinds of counties, just for this message of Islam to reach each and every household.
The organization has been using various methods to pass the message of Islam, including Islamic Awareness Week, to speak to non-Muslims and Muslims at large.
Tunatembea katika milango ya watu na biashara za watu, kuwaelezea, kuwagawanyia hivi vitabu ili watu wasome wajue maana ya Uislamu.
Reporting for Muslim Insight, I'm Kasim Mustafa.
Thank you for that report, Kasim Mustafa. And that brings us to the end of today's show. Thank you so much for staying with us here on Horizon TV and for following up on the first part of the show as well as the second part. Once again, my name is Nadia Osman and my sign language interpreter today is Mr. Abdul Wahab. Until next Friday, ma'as salam.